Thank you so much. I mean, I honestly, throughout the whole thing, I've been writing notes. I've got 3 pages. They're completely useless. It was meant to be a summary. But some of the things that I've picked up on, particularly from this panel here, that I wanted to call out. Well, firstly, we're a people industry. And Lisa said something I thought was great that we often forget. And she said she's a problem solver. And actually, as an industry, we're a collective of problem solvers. And our problems aren't necessarily linear. Linear problems, you can just, like, well, a famous example from Matthew Syed, he said a 4x100 meter race is a linear problem. What you really want is 4 Usain Bolts, if you can get them. You don't want any diversity, you just want the best person multiplied by however many of them you need. But actually, financial services, the products we make to represent the society we serve, the returns that we want to deliver to give people better life outcomes and so on, they're complex problems. I thought that was a great thing to highlight. Harleen, great story about this degree apprenticeship. Firstly, I didn't know that there were that many out there. I don't think asset managers are necessarily doing as much as banks. But if I think back to myself, when I was thinking about whether or not to go to university, I was lucky enough, the maximum you would have had to have paid at the time was £1,000, and I got means tested down to 0. But if it was £9,000, I was almost certainly not going to go. So it's going to make it even harder for us to tap into that potential talent that we really want to get hold of. Because remember, it's not Invesco competing with Jupiter for talent anymore. We're competing with other industries, and actually, we need the broadest talent pool possible. Harleen also mentioned, she was thinking, what do I add to a team? I think actually it's on us to think about what people add or could add to our teams. And Vincent mentioned his friend Andy Haldane. I interviewed Andy once, and he was talking about people portfolio theory. In our industry, we take such effort and care looking at data, correlations, our own views about making sure we've got these robust, diversified portfolios. And yet, when it comes to our people, we're not doing really any of that. And a bit more one-dimensional in how we build our teams. So maybe we think about our teams a bit more like we think about our portfolios. And Raheem mentioned role models, and it reminded me of the idea that when we think about social mobility, we always focus on the lower socioeconomic diversity sort of capital. So economic capital is what we really focus on. But actually, there's cultural capital and social capital. So, for example, you can have the sort of triple threat of headwinds against you. I can tell you now that I've been in the industry for a while, there were many a time where I was blagging the locations of places when people were talking to me because I didn't realize they were talking about ski resorts because I'd never been to one. But it suddenly occurred to me after a few Googles that that's what they were talking about. And Andy Haldane said when he first joined the Bank of England, he didn't understand the bankalese because he'd never studied Latin and he didn't understand what anyone was talking about. So again, we can be more inclusive there. And on the other panel, the panel before with Stuart, Rachel, James, Ash, and Vincent, one thing that stuck out to me was, or struck me, was the 25% progression stat that Vincent mentioned. Despite no difference in the performance that people from a lower socioeconomic background were delivering, they were progressing, or they are progressing, 25% slower. And it reminded me of another broader stat, society-wide, that is a low ability child from a high income background has a 35% higher chance of being a high earner than a high ability child from a lower income background, which is absolutely frightening. And I think that carries on throughout sort of the move into adult life. I think if we've learned one thing, it's actually we need to stop relying on those sliding doors moments of luck and put more structural things in place to make sure that we can repeat some of the great stories that we've heard here. I promise, stop banging on very, very shortly, but I wanted to say, don't wait for the data, but don't ignore the data either. Now, we know that Asset Owners Diversity Charter is a great example of how our industry is going to demand more of us. So if we're not doing it because we care and we want to do it for the right reasons, let's do it because we want to stay in business and we don't want heads of sales knocking down the doors of people like Stuart here saying, hey, I'm not going to get my bonus unless you sort this out. I need to participate in these mandates and fill out these RFPs. Before I leave you, if you enjoyed any of these sessions, any aspects of the session, I really hope you did as much as I did, I'd like to announce that we're launching a speaker series of 6 further sessions to start in September. You can hopefully see those on the screen. The first one is what can we learn from professional services? And why is that there? Well, if you've seen the Social Mobility Foundation's Employer Index over the last few years, you'll notice that at the top of that, pretty much every year, they feature pretty prominently. Companies like KPMG, PwC, and so on. So we're going to have them along to see what we can learn from them. And quite frankly, let's learn from their mistakes and try and overtake them if we can. We're going to do a CIO roundtable. Why? Because ultimately, as I said, we're here to deliver better outcomes for clients. And CIOs, ultimately, we always think, oh, are they the best investors? Actually, we should be thinking, are they the best people at building teams of investors that are going to deliver those outcomes? So hopefully we get some of those perspectives. We are partnering on this whole series here on the screen with both Progress Together and the Social Mobility Foundation. And if you haven't seen it yet, the Social Mobility Foundation have done a fantastic film on the perils of not addressing social mobility called Stay Down. So we're going to do a similar event to this, but there'll be popcorn at that one. And followed by a panel session with both with Helena Morrissey, who kindly presented today, who's the chair of the Diversity Project, Sophie Holm, who is the CEO of Progress Together, and Sarah Atkinson, who is the CEO of the Social Mobility Foundation. We're also going to do something a bit more practical. We want as many member firms, over 100 of you, to have employee resource groups, because quite frankly, we want mini fight clubs in every single member firm so that we can evangelize and make sure that we drive this agenda forward and not just get a bit excited for 15 minutes after this call and then forget all about it. But on that point, if you want to do something straight away while you've got the energy and you're thinking, you know what, actually, this feels like a good thing to do, look up the 1 Hour Project. You just devote 1 hour of your time on a one-off basis and to spend that hour with somebody who knows nothing about our industry, and at the end of that hour, they'll know a lot more than they did before, and you can potentially have changed the trajectory of somebody's future career. We're also going to talk about the commercial case for social mobility, because asset owners Diversity Charter, and regulators, as Vincent alluded to with that consultation paper, I think could hold the key. And lastly, we want to really focus on the idea of the alternative routes into the industry, not just the traditional graduate route. Let's make it a lot easier for people to get in there. I promised to speak less. I lied, but I am now finished. Thank you very much to all of our speakers. I found it fascinating. And if you'd like to download the toolkit or know more about the speaker series, the QR codes are on the screen. We will also be emailing them to you, all of you registrants, in the coming few minutes, I hope. Thank you very much.